welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're diving right back into our Crossfire series by Sylvia Day. If you have not already listened to the book review for book one, which is Bare to You, I'm going to put that link down in the description below. And then once you finish there, you can come on and join us back for Reflected in You. Gideon has a meeting in Arizona, and of course he wants Eva to come with him. They both have a really hard time just kind of even thinking about the fact of going like days without each other, because it's going to be like 2 or 3 days. So they do realize they do have like an unhealthy obsession with one another. However, her big thing too is she doesn't want to just be his arm candy. Like going on this business trip and basically just being his toy to screw with definitely sets that precedent that that's what she's going to be. And she doesn't want to do that. Like her mom is cool with being like just known for being with a powerful man, but that is not what Eva wants to do. So she says, she can't go because her and Carrie, they still got to kind of work out what happened the night before with her walking in on the whole threesome. So, she knows that Carrie's spiraling, and that's when his, behavior like gets really, really reckless. And so she knows like they kind of need their one-on-one time. Like this is a lot that's gone on. Like they moved to a new city. They've met these people. Everything's just so intense. It's a lot. And these are both people that have like addictive personalities, both Carrie and Eva. So she knows he's spiraling. And so she was more so like, maybe, me and Carrie can just like go to Vegas. And of course he was like, no. And she's just kind of like, I won't ask him for permission, we're going to go. But then he caves when he's like, well, you can go, but you got to take the plane with me and, the PJ, because it's going to be a private jet, and you have to stay in my hotel. And she's like, all right, I can agree to that. So Eva lets Carrie know, hey, we're going to Vegas this weekend. And he's like, is Gideon going to be there? And she's like, no, it's just going to be us. So, of course, he's stoked. She gets a call from Magdalene, and she tells her that Gideon ran out of there when she left from that charity event the night before. And that he was talking to Corinne. He was making it very known that he wanted to be with you, and that Corinne was trying to kind of pretend like she wanted to show you around the city, but at the same time she would say things like, oh, you remember when we went there? And she was trying to kind of go down memory lane too, so she was kind of trying to backhand that. And so Eva was like, okay, thanks or whatever. And I guess Magdalene, that was like her trying to help more so the situation, since she did start off kind of bitchy. So Eva was just like, okay, whatever. So Eva goes to lunch with Megumi. Megumi works in the building as well. And so before she leaves for lunch, she sends Gideon a text saying that she wants his dick in her mouth. And he calls her, and they talk dirty on the phone. Then when she gets back to the building, she sees the black Bentley, which is Gideon's car. And she sees Corinne. Her lipstick is smeared, by the way, getting into the back of his car. And so, of course, Eva is pissed. So Eva goes upstairs to Gideon's office, and she asks Scott, if he's available. The assistant tries to stop her, and she gets in anyway. So Gideon's walking out of the bathroom, and she sees like lipstick on his shirt, and she's like fuming. So he was being all evasive, and when she said that, she's like demanded to know, like, why was Corinne here? And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. She wasn't here. And he's like, I didn't even know she was in the building. So she's like fuming even more, because like now he's lying to me. Like this is a problem. And so they have this whole discussion about the charity event the night before, and how she felt like he was giving too much attention to Corinne, and him saying, I was just trying to pacify the situation and all this type of stuff. And she was like, no, what it was is you were trying to keep Corinne from me because you didn't want her to spill all the tea. And so he was, because of the whole thing about them being engaged. previously. And so he was mad seeing, he was like, I was pissed that you were dancing with Stanton's son, Richard Stanton, her stepfather's son. And she was like, he's like a brother. Like, what are you, that's not even an issue. And he was like, I don't care who it is. I'm always be jealous. Before she leaves, he's like, he wanted her to like tell him that she didn't believe that he cheated on her. And she's like, I can't do that. So she leaves, and then later that day, he calls her at her desk to remind her of their appointment with the therapist. So they go. Clearly at the therapist, you could tell there's like this massive tension going on between the two of them. So of course the therapist is going to ask, what's going on? So they tell him, and she finds out while Gideon is talking that he still has the fuck pad at the hotel. And she starts clenching her fist. And the therapist, asked them about their sex life and and was like, how often do you guys do it? Like a few times a week. And they're like a few times a day. And so the therapist was like, you might need to abstain, and give you all some type of space. And Gideon was like, that's not going to work for me. So you're going to have to find another way to fix us. So they leave. And she wants to go to her place, and he was like, why? And she was like, I don't feel the best. I'm thinking, and he's of course thinking like she's sick, but she's like, no, I'm just tired of fighting. She's like, and plus I think my period's about to come on, and I'm hormonal. And so we find out he normally doesn't really stick around for like those kinds of things, because he normally kind of operates with just flings, which is weird to me, because I'm like, but you were with Corinne, y'all were supposed to get whole ass married, so that's weird. So Eva has a nightmare that night of Nathan, and it makes her physically ill, and she throws up. Gideon was there, and then Carrie came to the door. Apparently Gideon, he had a business meeting to attend to, so he didn't get back there until like after midnight. And so her and Gideon have like this old special sex moment in the shower. It was sweet. Then in the morning, her and Carrie talk, and Carrie's like, do you think this is something you should be in? Because he has a lot of secrets. And she, of course, she's defending her relationship. And she's like, I just can't run. If I can't make this work with him, I might not be able to make it work with anyone. And that's kind of sad that she feels that way. That's putting a lot of pressure on something. It could just be that's the wrong person, But because she has such a screwed up sense of self, that's going to be her thought process. So Carrie tells her, I think you need to talk to the therapist they used to have in San Diego. I can't think of his name right now. Because he apparently had talked to the guy, I think probably that morning, and or the day before. He had talked to the therapist because he went to Trey, and he told Trey what had happened. And of course Trey can't deal with the fact that Carrie is bisexual, and he just wants him to be gay, and Carrie can't, so their relationship is pretty much on ice. So they get on the huge PJ to go, and Gideon's late coming, and he seems really irritated. And of course, Gideon and Eva, they have, at first she kind of ignored him, because she was like, whatever, like she's like, I'll put my headphones on, I don't have to deal with this. And so eventually her and Gideon, they have like a fun like 3-hour fuck fest on the way there. So they get to Vegas, and while Eva was getting a drink, a guy walks up to her, and he, he's making like small talk. So then Sheila, one of the hosts, she's got an earpiece in, and she tells her, we can have someone bring your drink to you. And she was like, oh no, I don't mind waiting, and Sheila was like, no, I must insist. So apparently there's like this whole list that Gideon has prepared for the host so that they can be on the lookout for. And if anything happens on that list, call him. So Carrie, of course, is like, that's messed up. And Eva, who originally wanted to go ballistic, was like, don't worry, I got a plan. So her plan was to keep tabs on him the way he does her. So she called Clancy, which is her stepfather's security driver, and she put a man on Gideon. So he was a huge guy, by the way. And so, of course, he thought, Gideon thought it was funny He was kind of mad, not too much. At the same time, he was so impressed how clever it was. It kind of made him hard because it was like, damn, that's a good ass chess move she just pulled. And so the next day she gets a call from her mother, and she was like, why didn't you invite me to Vegas? And so he was like, I'm sorry, next time, we'll do it. And she agreed to have lunch with her that day. So she was already going to go to lunch with Megumi, but her mom was, tagged along as well. So they had a great lunch. Megumi and her mom got along great. It was great. So on their way back from lunch, her mother sees something that stops her in her tracks, and she turns almost ghostly white. Clancy, the security driver, because they were walking back from lunch, even though they took the car. And so Clancy saw them, and he was like, get in the car. I'll take you guys the rest of the way back. So she goes to Krav Maga. She's off, of course. And so she's getting her ass kicked. And, the instructor's like, Parker's like, listen, I need you to get into it. I need you to focus. So she kind of got herself halfway there. So when she sees Gideon later that night, she tells him what happened with her mom. And he says he'll review the tapes from in front of the building. And she has this back and forth with him about revealing more of his past. Of course, Gideon's all like, in due time. So he doesn't tell her anything. So that night, she starts having a nightmare about Nathan trying to get to her. But then she hears Gideon's voice. So he was about to cause her trauma. That's how we're going to have to say it, because I don't want to get dinged by YouTube. So he was having a nightmare. So she used her technique from Krav Maga to get him off of her. And then she fled to the living room. And of course, he had this look of pure horror at what was about to happen. And he left the key on. So he didn't traumatize her, but it was about to happen. Okay. So she runs in the living room. He comes out. He leaves the key on the countertop. And this time she didn't stop him from leaving. Because remember the first time it almost got bad. She wanted him to stay. She didn't want him to feel rejected. This time, old girl was a little more terrified. That was that was a lot closer than the last incident. And so she was like, that was it. She needed him to kind of go. And she felt bad when he left, but she just didn't feel safe at that point. And you got to feel safe with your person. You know what I mean? So he texts her the next morning, tells her, Angus is still going to be there to take her to work, and that he's going to work from home today. So she was like, all right, I'll see you tonight. And he was like, I don't know. So she was like, well, I want to try, she wanted to try and assure him that, she's here. She's not running away. So she goes to his apartment that evening. He finally comes. Well, he wasn't home. So she let herself in because I think she had a key. And when he does come home, she's on the phone with Shauna, which is Mark's partner, Steven's sister. And she was getting invited to a concert that weekend. And so she agreed to go. So she thought he was going to break up with her. That's what she's thinking this is going on. He's getting distant. That's what she thinks is about to happen. And she tells him, if he ever puts the keys on the counter again and leaves, that they're really going to be done for good. And so he was trying to talk her out of being with him because he was like, it's not safe. And the therapist feels, they need to pull back, and at the same time for them it feels like it's not even an option. So they do agree. They come to a solution of she'll sleep in a separate room. They're not going to sleep in the same bed together for safety's sake. Okay. So Eva goes to work the next day. She has lunch with Mark, Steven, and Shauna. And Shauna needs a date for the concert because her boyfriend's, he's a chef and he's currently in Italy. And so her first thought was of Carrie, but then she kind of changed her mind because Carrie's a lot, and Carrie been on F the girl, and then messed up the messed up the relationship. So she's like, nah, we won't do that. So after the workout she had with Gideon, she asked him, do you know anyone? And she realized, she hadn't met any of his friends. And that kind of caused a really insecure moment